Hello guys, Mr. Druid here, and I'm going to cover the Chapter 11 additional notes for Section 1. So just take a note that these are the page numbers for all of your additional notes, so please take note of that. All right, so in Section 1 we talk about the powers, expressed powers of money and commerce. And what is an expressed power? An expressed power is any power that is specifically stated in the Constitution. So it is written down, you can see it, it says verbatim what you are supposed to do. For example, power to regulate commerce, so trade. Regulate, if you see down here, commerce is the power to regulate foreign and interstate trade. So they can control how trade is done in the United States, foreign and domestic. They have the power that is specifically stated in the Constitution. Now, an implied power is something that is not necessarily specifically written in the Constitution, but it's drawn, so it is taken from an expressed power. So it's not that they're just making this up. They're taking, okay, we have an expressed power that says we can regulate commerce. Okay, so we can regulate trade. So regulating trade and regulating business, we have the ability to do that. So Congress looks at it going, okay, so to make sure that things are getting fair and that we're regulating it properly, we want to pass minimum wage laws to make sure that people are not being abused. So hourly workers have to have at least an X amount of minimum wage. Even though the minimum wage laws are not specifically a power given to Congress, because they drew upon the express power of regulate commerce, they are able to make minimum wage laws. There's a cool little picture I will tell you later on in the additional notes, where there's a cool little graphic on a page where you can find an implied power. An inherent power is any power that belongs to any sovereign nation. So every nation has these inherent powers. So an example of this is that every country has the right to protect their borders from enemies, from people trying to sneak into their country, to a number of things. The country has the right to protect their borders. Every country. So those are the powers. Now I've already covered the commerce power. They have the power to regulate trade. Now, I want you to find an example. That's why I have the B here. You don't have the B. We gave you one already. So we have an example of the commerce power that has been used. In the Americans with Disabilities Act, they drew upon, again, this is kind of an implied power that they used. They made the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I still want you to write this stuff down. But the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was drawn from the commerce power, said that discrimination of anyone with a disability is illegal. You're not allowed to discriminate someone based on a disability because it's not their fault. So that means schools, employers, jobs, and public services such as like trains and public transit have to have accommodations for those with disabilities. So like perfect example of that would be ramps so people in wheelchairs can get up. Maybe they have to have a braille menu or something so they can read. So this has been used to help give civil rights to those with disabilities. So I want you to find an example of the commerce power and put it here. Now, Congress has the ability to tax, but there is some restrictions to that power. Congress can only tax for public purposes. They cannot do it for private reasons. So they can tax to build roads, but they cannot tax to build a swimming pool in a senator's backyard. They cannot use taxes for that reason. So that is one limit to the taxing power. Congress also cannot tax exports, so goods being sent out, like Coca-Cola. They cannot, if Coca-Cola is going to Spain, they cannot tax Coca-Cola being sent out. Now, if let's say Coca-Cola is being sent from Spain here, we can tax that. That's imports. We can tax imports, but we cannot tax exports. Direct taxes, so taxes that is paid directly to the federal government, must be apportioned. So spread out among the states according to their population. So they have to. So any taxes, there has to be spread out amongst the states, and it has to be according to the population, and it has to be sent. Direct taxes has to be sent directly to the federal government. And lastly, all indirect taxes, so any taxes that is not direct, has to be paid directly to the federal government, uh, has to be levied or so collected by the government the same way across the country. They can't collect taxes in Michigan different than they collect taxes in California. It all has to be the same. So this is meant to protect us from unfair biases in collecting taxes. They can't collect, 5% here and 20% in California. No, they would have to collect the same across the country. Now, if you want to go into more detail about the power of taxing, page 300 is a great place to look. Then lastly, for section 1, I want you to define what legal tender is. So a legal tender is a bill or a coin that must be accepted if it is offered to pay off debts. So that means that if I give you something that is legal tender, so like if I give you a dollar bill to pay off a debt, I owe you $1 for a candy bar. You have to accept that dollar, because if you ever look on a dollar bill, it says this is legal tender. However, if I was trying to pay you in a Coca-Cola, instead of paying you the dollar that I was meant to give you, you could accept the Coca-Cola on a personal level, but legally, you do not have to accept it, because Coca-Cola is not legal tender. But if I offer you $1 because you bought me a candy bar and it's about $1, you would have to accept it, because that is paying off my debt to you. So that is what legal tender is. It's money. All right, that is it for section 1. I'm going to make the videos for section 2 and the rest next. So thank you. If you have any questions, please send me a message, and have a wonderful day.